Welcome back to another episode of the Bigger Than Me podcast. Here is your host, Aaron P.
I am speaking with the man who fuels my runs with motivation, who inspires his listeners with insightful lyrics. My guest today is the one, the only, Vin Jay. One of my favorite people to chop it up with, to catch up with. Vin Jay, would you mind briefly reminding people who you are?
Yep, I can do that. So for those who don't know me, my name is Vin Jay. I am a hip-hop artist mainly. I branch out into a few genres from time to time, but mainly hip-hop. Independent artist. I try to make music that has an impact. And yeah, I'd say that pretty much sums it up.
It's been a while since we caught up, since your last album that you dropped, your last EP. What have you been up to?
So, been making a lot of music. I'd say the biggest difference from right now to my past is just the bar that's been set for myself. I'm in here almost every day trying to create records, but what I allow to come out now is much, much less than when it used to be. So I've been releasing the songs that I think are good enough to come out, for sure, but maybe not life-changing or super impactful, but they're definitely sonically good enough to come out, and I like them. I think they're a good display of skill set and things of that nature. And I've been holding on to all of the ones that I'm like, these are out of control. These need to like be pushed for real, for real. So that's where I'm at. I'm coming to the end phases of holding on to 5 to 6 really, really good songs that are going to have full-blown videos. They have a narrative. They're some really impressive artists on them, things of that nature. So everything is kind of coming to a head right now in terms of the good music being released and tour starting. So a lot of big changes.
Interesting. When you when you start creating, do you go into it with whatever mood you're in and start creating the songs that are kind of what are vibing with how you're feeling that day?
Yeah, for sure. I've tried many, many times, and I tried last week to do this, to force write over a certain type of beat because someone wants me to get on that beat, or I feel like I need one of those records because it's been a while, and it never works out. It always comes out really generic because there's zero inspiration behind it. The words aren't charged with emotion or energy. So I veered away from writing for the sake of writing. Now, now you have to come into the studio very open. You can come in with an idea of whatever you want. You could try to impose your will on the song. It's not going to work. But to give you an example of like how I operate now, my producer buddy of mine, Epidemics, sent me a beat the other day, and he's like, "Yo, you should check this out. It's this type of beat, whatever." So I pull it up, and it's a very good beat, but it was a very normal dark boom bap record where it's just like heavy drums. It's got that dark energy behind it. So I was like, okay, let me just try to rap to this. So what I do first is I crank the auto-tune all the way up. So I just start doing some mumbling scats that are melodic, and I catch some really catchy melodies that way. But what happened is when I was doing those scats, I'm just like, na, 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 na. And then I heard when I was listening back to the scats, one of them sounded like the word America. And I was like, oh, it's game over now. So now this record that I just sat down with to rap to turned into this very political record, speaking on the state of the world currently and all the, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. But just because I was mumbling over a hook, it came to me. The door opened. But there's no way I could have sat down and been like, it's time to write about this.
Interesting. Do you ever worry about leaning into those emotions? Like maybe it's a really dark song about mental health or the struggles you're facing, and then there's like, you could go too far. You could go down that rabbit. Is there any fear around that?
No, I have a fear of the exact opposite of the words, the listener playing the song and they feel nothing because there's nothing to it. That is my biggest fear, and that's what prevents me from putting out 90% of the songs I make.
Okay.
It could be extremely lyrical and impressive and whatever, but if there's no emotion in my voice because it's just impressive for the sake of being impressive, I can't play a record where that sounds so uninspired. So no, the more human chords I can, touch with the words, the better, straight up. And if it pisses some people off, fuck them.
Is there any like impact over the next few days if you go down a rabbit hole and start think maybe it connects with some part of your life and you're talking about something you went through and then now you're really digging into the meaning of it and maybe you're sharpening up the lyrics and now you're kind of stewing over this darkness that you experienced or this heavy moment in your life that kind of carries over with you for a week or for however long it takes to make that song?
Maybe a little bit. I don't let it leave the studio too much. Oh man, how was I gonna word this? Excuse me, my train of thoughts everywhere today. I apologize. But no, it'll stick with me, but in a good way. Like I want to live in that emotion big, big, big time so I could translate it. Oh, now I remember what I was gonna say. I love when I'm writing and it forces me to feel heavily a certain way. And I think that's because, I'm blessed enough to have achieved certain things in my life. And I'm blessed enough to have the accolades I do and the financial blessings from what I do. So life can regular things, and I don't want this to sound jaded, but a lot of times the regular day to day can feel very mundane. And that is like way more damaging to me and my mental health than feeling anything really hard, whether it's sad, happy, anger, da da da. In terms of creating a song, I love when I get wrapped up and completely consumed by that emotion, because when I go day in and day out of a regimented lifestyle and lack any intense feeling, that shit is what sucks way worse than getting wrapped up in any emotion.
Fascinating. Maybe you can help me process this. One of the rappers that really I admire was Juice WRLD. And one of the thoughts that I kind of had about his whole process was that he had to go right near a cliff and basically like dangle over that cliff. And you can say in his songs, he talks about like dying and overdosing on drugs and the risk of that to his life and that he doesn't know if he's going to survive. And like, I think he was really right there. Like, I actually think he went to that cliff and he was like, oh my gosh, like I am right here. And then we as listeners go like, wow, what is it like to be there? And I kind of resonate with that. And you're saying the big emotion that I feel and you're verbalizing it and you're walking us through it. But I think that artists have to go there. And I think there's a genuine risk that to share the depths of that emotion, you have to teeter on the edge of your own mental health safety and your own physical and well-being safety. And I just feel terrible that he actually did pass away and he foresaw his own death in his music. And that's terrifying. And so when I hear people leaning into these emotions, part of me is like, we're so grateful as listeners to have that. But on the flip side, it's like where you go is where so few people are able to sometimes come back from. Do you process that at all or think about those things?
Oh yeah. It's our job as artists, man. We're vessels, and we can complain about, including myself, we can complain about the ultra highs and ultra lows that we get because of it, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. Like the ability to be able to be that like conduit for that feeling for others and the effect that that has on them far surpasses whatever major lows and major highs come from this shit. But yes, you need to be engulfed in it for real. Otherwise, it's going to sound uninspired. I've heard songs from other artists, and it could be on topics as aggressive as drug addiction or things of that nature. But if they're just doing it to make a song about drug addiction, you could hear the difference, man. They're saying very generic things about sadness and being in a dark place and, woe is me. But when someone is there, bro, you can hear it. Like in the word choice, in the pain in their voice, you could hear the tone of their voice. And I think for true art, I mean, you could do whatever you want, and your song could pop, even if you make it for the sake of making the song. But to really create art that's impactful, you do have to go there. And I was talking to my buddy about this a few weeks ago. So I have a song I wrote back in 2021, okay? And it's a really good song. But when I wrote it, the recording kind of got messed up, okay? So I had to re-record it, but the verse is very sad and there's some pain in the voice and all that. And thank God I'm mentally in a good place right now. So when I go to re-record it, I've tried so many times to re-record it, and it's just not believable because I have to like fake sadness because I'm not in that place anymore. But it's so good that I want the song to come out. But I told my buddy, we were having a conversation about it. So I would have to put myself in a intentionally in a dark place. Like I would have to be genuinely upset about something to get this song to where I want it to be. And I can't force bad life events to happen, nor do I want to. So what I said to him, I've been off alcohol for 8+ months now. And I said to him, like, the tortured artist, man, the like self-inflicted damage we do for our art, because if I really wanted this song to work out, I would probably have to break my sobriety and then like feel really fucked up about it. And then I could like you would hear it in the record. But it's a choice, man. And it's not always the right choice to dive into that. I think it makes for incredible art, but you also were humans at the same time. So we are riding this fine line of like artist and human being who's trying to feel peace.
With somebody who really understands the depths of these emotions and like is able to sit with them in a different way, what is your biggest fear?
That's a big question. What is my biggest fear? It's so unrelated. And fear is such a loaded word too, you know? Like I have a fear of public speaking, but I'm going on tour. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna run headfirst into it. I don't care. So fear is such a weird word because I think as humans we adapt to anything, regardless of how bad it is. Um, I don't know. Okay. Okay. Yeah. My biggest fear is probably losing someone I care about, right? Um, in a way that's out of my control, I guess. But I think that's everyone's biggest fear is like probably, you know what? I take that back because it's not that specific thing. It's the principle underneath it. And that is a feeling of helplessness. That is my biggest fear.
Interesting. Can you talk to me about the process that you've been through? To me, you're one of these really unique artists because it's not just that like you come out with great songs. I feel like you're working on this underlying philosophy around your life, around meaning, around making an impact bigger than yourself, around contributing that gives voice to great music. Like I've heard it from comedians like Joe Rogan that say you need to live life, then you need to go on the stage and share that life. You can't just stay on tour forever and just keep coming out with new jokes. You have to go live in the real world and then bring the humor of that world back on stage. And it's the same for music. You can't just sit in. And so you've been developing this philosophy. What has that journey been like that really informs your music?
Yeah. I'll be honest, personally, I'm a bit of a recluse, but I've felt negative effects from that, so I've veered from that. I think so often we think like, oh, people suck, so I'm gonna isolate myself. But that's a very short-term fix and it has negative consequences on your mental health. So I've learned not to do that. With that being said, I agree with you that it is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to fill it before you can share with others. Again, the way I do it, man, like I said, I live a pretty regimented lifestyle. My day in, day out looks very, very, very similar from one day to the next until I feel very mundane. And then I'm like, it used to be like, let's go get drunk. Now I just tell my girl, like, let's go get Krispy Kreme and eat all the donuts. So, so I guess for me, it's new experiences with people that I care about is kind of what I've been leaning into. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like my mom came out here a few weeks ago. Me, her, my buddy, and my wife went to like an escape room for the first time. Just anything that stimulates the senses, the mind, and is new, right? I think new is the name of the game, regardless of what it is, because our day in and day out could be so redundant that just get a little spark back in you for life to be excited about being alive again. I think that's kind of how I go about it.
Okay, we've got to dive into some of the music now. You came on the show, and then I believe right after you came out with the song No Excuses. And it was such a good song, and I missed the opportunity, so we have to go all the way back, and we have to talk about that one. We were chatting before this about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex and how fascinating that is, and I'm just curious as to how that song came about, and again, some of the people that informed that mindset.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one actually. It's got a cool backstory. So me, Futuristic, Anakin, Oswin Benjamin, who else was there? A bunch of artists. Okay, we rented a beautiful, beautiful mansion in Sedona for like a 3 to 5 day artist retreat we did. And so we're in this beautiful, beautiful house with the intention of making music over the next 5 days. Maybe we get on each other's songs, whatever. But just again, new place. The window had a gigantic mountain range outside of it, just out of control. So everyone was very inspired. Now, I am listening to songs that have good vibes on them. It feels kind of like summertime or just like, a good time with friends. And again, brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. I think I was just forcing the environment onto the songs and it just wasn't right. But what ended up happening, right? So the next morning, I'm on the balcony, we're smoking hookah, and George, my manager, comes up to me and he's like, "Yo, this dude Tantu sent me some beats. Let me know if you mess with any of them." So he has his phone next to my ear. I was like, "Nope, nope." Plays the third or fourth one. I was like, "Send me that." So he sends me No Excuses. So now after 2 days of not being able to write anything, I lock myself in my room and for 5 hours am pacing across this room writing because they pulled this energy out of me of like, man, like I'm the shit. That's what it felt like. And also it's when I get in those spaces of being unable to write, self-doubt washes over you, right? Like, oh my God, I've been trying to write for 2 days. I can't do shit. Is something wrong with me? Do I have writer's block? Am I not talented? So when you finally catch this wave of motivational energy to write the record, you ride that thing. So I wrote for hours on end, wrote the whole thing there, and then recorded it when I got back to the crib, back at my house. And yeah, so it went from not being able to write to writing like a 3-minute no hook song just about like breaking barriers and pushing through adversity.
Which really links up nicely with the idea of the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which I'm getting very comfortable rolling off my tongue now.
No, there's practice there.
Which is this idea of like you can develop grit. Like you mentioned David Goggins and running like David Goggins, and that idea that you're going to get up, and he talks about how he stares at his shoes before he goes for a run and goes like, I don't want to do this. And then he goes, shut up, you're going to do this and you're going to get it done. And I'm just curious as to your lay of the land. You do see out into the world, and it seems like we're so soft. Like when I tell people all the things that I'm managing, they're like, wow, you're really busy. And it's like, why aren't you? Like there's so much life to live here. Like nobody's standing in your way. The whole idea of a free country is you can go get after it. You can max out your day with stuff to do. You can schedule it so it works for you. Jordan Peterson does a great job of saying like, you can make sure to include the fun things you want to do in a day. Your schedule isn't like restricting you to boring meetings. You can fill it up with the things you actually want to do. And it just seems like, well, like we want 4-day work weeks. We want less work. We want to lay around more. We want to beach in Mexico where we don't have to do anything. And it's like, but where are you making an impact? Where are you influencing people? Where are you growing things to be better for others? Like that's where I feel like you do such a good job of that song of being like, go get after it. There's no one stopping you. And there's these other examples in the world that you can look to grow. And I find that so inspirational, but sort of missing from like the culture.
So I think because I won't say everyone, most people, let's say, work in jobs that they don't necessarily love. They think they want to do nothing, right? Like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend so I could just not do this, right? So I could just chill the fuck out. But I think I was talking to my dad about it. I was like, everyone thinks they want to do nothing until they have the ability to do nothing. And then you'll realize how bad doing nothing sucks. Sitting and doing nothing. What is it? Idle hands are the devil's playground. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
It's so freaking true because the days I don't do this anymore. But in the past, when I would spend a whole day, 2 days doing nothing, you do not feel good. And I think that's because you lack purpose. There is no purpose in doing nothing. No one says you have to go after these things to make money or have accolades or this stature of success, but it's purpose driven. You waking up and doing nothing for yourself or for anybody else, whether that's you did some push-ups, congratulations, you did something for yourself, or you did something that helped someone else. Like, you have this joy within you now because your life has some sense of meaning, right? So I think everyone misinterprets when they're getting yelled at by David Goggins well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be ripped. I don't want to be rich. Fair. You don't need to be. But action will make you feel a lot better than inaction, to put it very simply.
I couldn't agree more. And they just kind of prove out the test case, right? Like, he's willing to go do that. So you know that it's possible. So you know that you have no excuses, that you can go and chase whatever you want to do and go succeed. But I'm just wondering, when you make a song like that, is there any ability to process the fact that that is fuel to people's fire? That I take it into the gym, that other people take it out on a run, and they're able to run longer, move faster, and that you're putting that energy into the world, that hopefully all those listeners are able to rise to the occasion in their own lives. And you're able to contribute. Like, I get so nervous for interviews with you because I'm like, that's your contribution. Like, that's a huge contribution to give to the world, to encourage them to reach their full potential.
So I wouldn't say I go in with that specific intention when I create. It's more so just a beautiful byproduct of creating what I can only create, which is impactful shit. And I don't say that on some like, I only know how to make music that helps people. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, again, going back to what I said earlier, is I have no reasoning. It lacks purpose to put out songs for the sake of making songs. So as selfish as it sounds, I make these songs because I want to feel something, or I need to purge an energy. And it just so happens that when you're that true to yourself and the intention is that pure, it resonates with people. So I love that it can do that for people and motivate them, but I can't motivate people if I'm not motivated. So it's just these really raw emotions of whether it's motivating, I can motivate you, or whether I'm sad and I make a sad song reflecting, I can make you feel not alone. But at the end of the day, it's got to come from a very, very real place. Love that it impacts people in whatever fashion, but that cannot be my target from the jump. Otherwise, it's just misguided.
Interesting. Do you find that it's a challenge at all? Because you do make these amazing records, and you've kind of also talked about that you don't always feel that way. That, like, in that moment, you can feel like you're the man and you killed it and you destroyed that beat. But then other days, you're just a normal person and you might not have those same emotions. Is it at all strange to be in that juxtaposition sometimes where you drop a song where you're like, I'm the man, I'm killing it, I'm taking over the world, and then the next song is like, I don't know if I'm shit, like, I don't know where I'm going, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, is that at all a journey?
Yeah, it's a journey, bro. I didn't have these high highs and low lows until I really popped off, because I guess just like getting thrown into the water with the sharks, and it's like learn how to swim and make your music career pop. It's a spiritual journey on its own, teaching me like how to maneuver. But yeah, man, like the highs and lows are crazy, because you do get a high when you make something that powerful. You just use your voice to create sound waves that when they hit someone else is going to change the way they're vibrating. And that is a high. And when you play back the recording, you know you just did that before you even release a song, because it's doing it to you when you click play, right? You're like, holy shit, this is making me feel nuts. So that high is what you chase. The problem is it is a high. So when you're in the studio for 7 days after that, it doesn't matter that you just made potentially one of the biggest songs of your career, or the song that you're the happiest with. It doesn't matter, because now you've went 7 days without being able to achieve it again. And that doesn't sound like much, but you just did it and you want it again. So yeah, the highs and lows are vast. And something I struggle with is I derive so much purpose from it that when it's been a while since I've done that, I feel low, like lower than usual. And then it's like I have to like parent myself and be like, all right, go. It's clearly not working right now. Go live some life. Go do something else that makes you happy. I know this is like up there for you, but you can't just sit here and beat your head against the wall because you're not able to get it right away. So it is that. It's chasing that high again, but also realizing like when it's time to back off because you're doing more harm than good to yourself.
Yeah, because I can imagine being around the futuristics and the Anakins. Like you want to show out, you want to show up, and you want to give all that energy, and then to have those mental struggles of like what's going on, why aren't I hitting, and what can I do differently, or what do I need to change? That can all start to get into your head, and it reminds me of, I don't know if you know the fighter Dustin Poirier, but he talked about the exact same thing with fighting. He did a great interview with Ariel Helwani where he was like, man, after my last fight, I was like, am I the guy anymore? Like, he was like, everything I was a UFC fighter and the guy that showed up and the diamond, and I'm willing to fight, and I have the most grit and the most determination, and everybody respects me. But I just lost my last fight. I got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, and so I didn't know if I was that guy anymore. And he said he got the lowest he's ever been in his life after that fight, and yet he has everybody's respect. Like, he lost a fair fight, but like nobody loses their respect for his grit and his determination as a consequence. But his whole mindset, he wasn't thinking of himself as a husband, as a father, as a fan. Like, he lost all of that because of that moment, and he had to work his way back. And it seems like when you're chasing something so big, like becoming a great artist or becoming a great UFC fighter, when you're chasing that big goal, sometimes you can lose yourself to that and forget that you're all of these other things.
Yeah, and for me personally, because that's all I could speak on, I guess, is that's what it takes. You have to, there's such stiff competition in these things, right? Like, to even make a living as a UFC fighter or a rapper or fill in the blank, there's not many, right, that make a very good living. So it requires all of you, and you'll yield the results from that too, but it's hit and miss. It's like, to get those highs that you're seeking after, you are going to need to be able to get punched in the face and keep going. No pun intended, because we were just talking about UFC. But you need to like take some hard losses, because you're in the wild, wild west. You're not playing it safe. You're not doing the traditional route. So you want that everyone has this, you want this. Well, then you're going to need to experience down here when they only experience down here. It's the fucking trade-off. It's the yin and yang. You want higher highs, you get lower lows. That's the name of the game. And if you can accept that, then you can push forward and say, this is the other side of the coin of what I asked for.
That is brilliant. You then come out with Superhuman with Anakin, and I loved your first team up because you're passing that beat back and forth. Did you come up with that when you all went out together, or was that a separate song?
For Superhuman?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very similar approach to Superhuman as we did for Sedona. Basically, my buddy made me a beat. He actually didn't even make it for me. He just always sends me snippets of the beats he's making, and I was like, send that to me right now. So he sent me Superhuman. I recorded my verse, and I'm just remembering this. So Superhuman had 3 other artists on it before Anakin. And they all did great, but it wasn't the energy I was looking for. It didn't complete the song the way I had wanted it to. So I told them all, thank you, but like, not on this one. Cannon came over. Anakin, sorry, I call him Cannon. I know it confuses a lot of people. He came over and he did what he did, and I had the back and forth parts ready already. My part was recorded. I put a space. My part was recorded, put a space, and he just understood the assignment. Like, he's a dancer and a very good one at that. So he understands like how to pick something back up that was just left off. So like even the way he picks up where I left off, no other artist did this who sent me a verse back. I'm like, and I make it look easy, bitch. Everyone, when I said that, just started their verse.
Yeah.
Cannon picked it up. He said, I'll stomp you out of my Yeezys, bitch. And then he started his verse. It was like,
Right.
I got you. I'm going to finish your thing. And now I'll come in. It felt a lot more cohesive. But it's just, yeah, he did his thing on that one.
That's so interesting because that's exactly how it feels as a listener, is that you guys are just like, it's almost like you have a ball and you're just tossing it back and forth. And like within my culture, like we have like talking sticks, and like it seemed like you were passing that back and forth, and that you guys are able to like become in sync. And I think really good songs can do that. Like I think of like G-Eazy and BB Rexa when they did their song together, Me, Myself and I, like that one took off, but it took off because they complemented each other, and they kind of like interwove the music. What is, if I can ask, what is the process when you're trying to select someone for a song? Do you just put a call out where it goes out to the world and anybody can submit? Like, how does that work?
No, it is definitely not a call out and anyone can submit type thing. The way I see it, music is just vibrations, right? You pluck a string on the guitar, it goes back and forth and it makes a resonant tone and we like the way it sounds. Then you put some pressure on it somewhere and it makes a different noise, right? Our voices are instruments too. We're just vibrating our vocal cords. It's coming out with a certain tone and whatever. Certain songs call for guitar, xylophone, piano, right? Just because that's what the mood calls for. Some songs call for specific voices, certain tones, certain instruments, and not others. So I knew Cannon's tone would fit very well on that beat, as well as his flow patterns and how he rides beats. But I could tell you 10 talented artists that I like that would have made no sense on it, even if they are lyrical choppers. Just it's an energy thing, it's a vibration thing, and you can hear who it calls for. Like if I played you a beat, a very specific beat, you could be like, oh, I could hear 50 Cent on this. It's because you just know there's an instrument, aka someone's voice, that would complement the already existing instruments in the instrumental.
That's really deep because it seems so applicable to so many circumstances where you want to be very intentional about making those decisions. Since we last spoke, he actually dropped his album. I'm sure you listened to it. What was your like feeling of it, and what did you take away from it?
From Anakin's album?
Anakin's album, yeah.
Yeah, so he threw a he threw a release party. It's even bigger than that. I don't even know what you would call it, but it was an event. There you go. He threw an event at this immersive hall, let's call it, where the walls projected pictures, and he invited all his friends and performed the album from front to back when it first came out. That was incredible. I really enjoy Cannon's music for a reason that I don't enjoy most people's music. If I like others' music, it's like, oh, they could sing well, their flow is incredible, they could rap well, they're very creative with the tone and pockets, right? Cannon's music is different, man. His comes from a like really ethereal place. He's very big on creating from scratch. Like he'll make the beat with the producer from the beginning, from a blank slate, and he's like, I like that instrument, I like the way it buzzes and sounds is built off that. And he just really finds these spaces of thought within the songs that in a way that I don't think many people do. I think he does a really good job at speaking universally and still it's digestible, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think his creation process is what I love the most, and it shows a lot in his music. Most people, including myself and many, many of my peers, is like, we get a 95% finished beat, and then we make a song to it, send it back to the producer, and say, like, produce some cool shit around my vocals to make them pop a little more. Cannon builds like a painter. He's like, let's throw this here, let's throw that there. That makes me want to do this. Now here, we're going to completely change the beat and do a breakdown, and it's going to turn into a dance record. I think he doesn't follow the template at all. He doesn't follow the structure at all. And that's what makes his music sound the way it does.
Fascinating. You also came out with the song Lost, and your wife was on that song with you. Would you mind sharing the backstory?
Yeah, so that one's not as crazy. So to be completely honest, whenever Cannon Cassidy is on a song, it's because I write all my hooks and I try to record everything. And if it's out of my range, it's just too high, I just call her in there. I scream from the other side of the house and she comes in, hops on the mic, and she takes care of it. But I think going back to instruments, voices as instruments, I think the female vocal on the hook added a really nice contrast to the record as a whole. I had a really deep, low tone on the verse, and then to hear that feminine sound come in on the hook with me layered underneath it, I felt like it really came together. But the story behind the lyrics of the song, I would say, is just that was one of those in between moments of I hadn't made a No Excuses, a Superhuman, a Sedona, and that was me preaching about it. It's the woes of the journey of trying to find that next one. And it sounds so minuscule and little, like, oh, you're sad you can't make another big song, but it's so much deeper than that. It's purposeful. That's where a lot of my purpose is derived. So that's me making some music while I'm on my way to find another song that makes me feel purposeful.
Here's a philosophical question for you. Would you say that you feel more comfortable in those dark moments, in those lost or those running songs, or more comfortable in the superhuman, in the no excuses mindset? Where do you feel more at home?
It's so evenly split.
Okay.
So evenly split because I only live in either or. I don't live in between.
Right.
I live in top of the mountain or darkness. So I have two homes and those are both them. So they are the two types of records that I make the easiest. And it's only because I value the first one so much that the second option is just the default when that one can't come.
Interesting. Because the weird thing I would say about me is that, like, I think for the most part I come across as a pretty positive, like, happy person. And usually when I'm interviewing someone, it's like, how do you reach your full potential? But then I'll go listen to like NK, or I'll listen to like Running, or I'll listen to NF, and it's like I just feel like I'm just a loser that just never went anywhere in life. And like that's like my comfort zone, is like thinking that I just never made it anywhere. And then I go out and I try and be positive and uplifting, but like that's like my behind the scenes brain is like, maybe this podcast goes nowhere, maybe I'm an idiot, like maybe I'm not, just those same type of thoughts. But that's like my comfort zone is sitting in those feelings.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes with the territory, man. I think when you strive for so much, you're bound to have harsh feelings of doubt because you're venturing down the path less traveled. So there are not as many success stories that you could look up to and be like, this is definitely going to work. So that crippling doubt, man, I think it's way more common than me and you think it is, because it's not as popular to talk about that part of the glamorous entrepreneur lifestyle. But I genuinely think it comes with it, because what we're doing is high risk, high reward.
Couldn't agree more. Then you drop the song Running, and this one was a really good one. One of my favorite lines from it was, "Can't nobody keep it peaceful?" And I love that because there's only a few interviews that I've done where I can genuinely hear peace in the person's voice as they're communicating. Like, I think it's like 4 interviews where they just sound like nothing could bother them. And they have this philosophy around how they're communicating that sounds like if you were to throw something at them, they'd process it calmly. Like that whole energy doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't have that communication style. But when they bring that, it's like, wow, that really is rare. Like, we are so easy to pop off and be frustrated when somebody cuts us off in traffic, or when somebody says something mean to us on social media, or when a family member disrespects us at the dinner table. Like, we're so easily challenged, and it's hard to find peace where when something does arise, you're not impacted because you understand your place in the larger world. Can you tell us about the song Running and that line?
Yes. So, man, I want to touch on what you just said as well. That level of peace is foreign to me. And I get it because I've felt intense peace before, but to have that as your default is nuts for me personally, because I don't know, man, if you and I hate to sound like but, you know, how could I word this? I hate to sound like doom and gloom, right? But if you just look like at what is going on in the world and you really have your finger on the pulse of things, if you're that at peace, you either don't have anything you're concerned about losing, or you don't plan on protecting people you care about, or you're uninformed onto what's going on, or like you're okay with dying and the people you care about dying. Like, it's very confusing to me if you really are tapped into what's going on in the world, that you can just be like, yeah, everything's cool, man. It's like, I'm telling you, it is not. Like, maybe go get yourself 12 months worth of food, water, and some guns or something. And then maybe you could have that peace because you're like, okay, everything's cool. And if shit does pop off, then we're going to be fine. But still, bro, I don't know. I think tensions are so high. And I'm not, I'm not trying to be divisive or politicize this entire podcast. But if I could speak vaguely about it, that's what I would say. I think the world is in a wild place right now, and a lot of shit is coming to the forefront. Really, really deep truths that are going to affect everything. And to have full peace while all that is going on is a bit confusing to me.
Agreed. The only area I guess I'd follow up with is maybe it's been that way since, like, I think we as people can get stuck in like, this is our time frame. But like, you have to think during the Cold War, things were like maybe way worse than this, because they really did almost hit that nuclear like attack button. They really were that close. And when you think of World War II, like, we were this close to losing, and the world would be a completely different place if we did. And so like maybe the piece is that we've been here before. We've been in utter chaos before. But maybe humans have an inclination to overcome those things at that final hour, not press the button and win the war when it comes time.
Yeah, I've taken I found solace in that I can't change anything myself, but if the time does come, then I'll be willing to do whatever I need to do to, keep the people I care about and things I hold near and dear safe.
I have to say, as a Canadian, I have a lot of admiration for that. And I do think we lack that in Canada. And I think if you look at some of our politics, it will reflect that we're not very good at that. But like, as you said, having 3 months worth of food, making sure that you're prepared, making sure that you have a vehicle, making sure that you know where you would go if things got out of hand. We had the Vancouver riot. Like, just being mindful of those things, I think, is important. But let's get back to your song Running and how that song came about.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a Vin podcast if I don't tangent about politics for at least 30 seconds. Running. That's okay. So that's a lower vibrational song than even Low was. I'm sorry, not Low. Lost. Lost is kind of, I'm doing all right. I feel a little upset about things. Running is way darker. That is, that's just about the real crippling self-doubt that can consume you, right? Lost is just exactly that. You're feeling a bit lost, you're not sure, but you're going to keep pushing on either way, right? Running is you're at the end of your rope. It feels like it's a call, it's a cry for help, in the sense that, like, hoping someone feels the way that you feel. That's the best way I could say that. That song is really just a reflection of dark thoughts.
Can we talk about the cover art for some of these? Lost and Running, they're just great cover art. Just like there's ones where like I'm excited to send it to somebody because it's like it's the exact mood that you want to send to them, and then you see other artists and it just doesn't always kind of jive. Like they're gonna look at it and they're gonna go like, why did you send me this? This isn't what I'm looking like. Yours are always on point and they kind of have that energy. How do you get your cover art developed?
It's very underwhelming. Very underwhelming. It's as close to like stock images as you can get without it being stock images, but my selection process is very particular. The same way I listen for who would fit on a song, I go through many photos for cover arts and say like that is the energy of this song.
Right. I love that. Is there anyone that stood out to you over all the songs you've made that you're super proud of?
Cover art wise?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm not huge on cover art as particular as I am with it. I'm not super big on it because I don't think it plays a gigantic role in the performance of the song or how many people it can reach. Let's see. I think the See the Light one was pretty cool. It's literally just an eye with a literal stream of light over it. But like I said, I don't put too much thought into it. So if I gave you a long-winded answer, it would not be genuine.
Right. Can we talk about Goddamn? Because that one was like, it hit and I was on a run and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. And then it got me all thinking about all the lyrics and we'll get into that in a second. But how did that song come about?
Yeah, so me and Gawne have met a few times, and basically when we do songs, we just trade. Typically, like if you get on someone's songs, you're like, okay, give me a 20% cut of the royalties of the song, and we're good to go. That's my payment for the record. Or give me a flat rate payment, and then don't give me any royalties. But me and a few artists, we just trade. It's like, here's your verse from me, and I'll hit you up, and then you give me a verse for one of my records. So Gawne hit me up for that one, and he went off as per usual. And I always say I low-key do better on features than I do on my own songs because the competition is there and I refuse to be the worst one on the song. So I did he sent it to me. He's like, do your verse. So I made sure I snapped for him, stayed on brand with the lyrics, did a little chopper flow in some spots because that's, the fans love that. And then he just sent me a verse back for a song of mine, and that song is arguably the best unreleased song I have right now.
Wow. Okay. And then Merkules is on that song as well. So you've done a few songs with him. What did you think of his verse, and what did you think of the song release?
Yeah, I mean, for the song released, when it released, the numbers crushed, which, I mean, obviously everyone did their thing, but you never know what a song, how it's going to perform, right? You could love it, it could flop. But it crushed when it came out. And yeah, Merk always kills it, man. He's been doing this shit for a while, and my guys went viral how many times now just from, rapping. So Merkules is one of those dudes, bro. And it's always fun to get on a song with artists that push you and that you respect, that what they've done and what they continue to do. And when everyone goes off on a record and it's your turn, I don't think there's much more inspiring than that to really push you to go off on the record.
Is it ever surreal, like getting on, like chatting with you? I always get like super nervous. Is there any nerves sitting, chatting with them, chopping it up with them? Like, is there any feelings, or are you guys just buddies? Because I don't know. I don't know if I could, if I was in a room with you guys, I think my hands get sweaty and I don't think I'm as chill as you.
No, I don't really get starstruck, especially with people that I consider my peers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is there anyone that I've met? Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd say the biggest person I've met, I met Tech, that was super dope. But it wasn't starstruck. You're just kind of like, you're just happy to be around them, man. It's people that inspire you. So there's some nerves maybe on the way there, but once you get around people, you're like, oh, you're just a regular person who does 100%. Incredible shit. But yeah, like when I met Tech, I had a little bit of that feeling. Same with Logic when I met him. But the second you say what's up to them, it's all gone, bro. It's all just people who did awesome shit.
Yeah. Merk is another one because he's like, I work in Surrey. Like he's right there. Like he's infamous around here. We also have to talk about the game needs a cleanse. This was one of your lines. You have to explain it to me.
Yeah, this is on the Damn record, right?
Yeah.
What is that line? It's, I feel like the game been lacking a cleanse. I'm ready to kill. Yeah. So that is just, it needs a refresh. And I don't mean like, oh, well, music sucks and da 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 da. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, I think because we're in the age of more music equals better, the more you put out, the better, and the more content, the better. I think everything starts to sound really derivative and template. So when I say a cleanse, I mean we just need some refreshing artistry. That's all I'm saying. And look, I've fallen victim to sounding like some of my inspirations as well, but the way I've approached, I guess, cleansing my own music is making sure that the things I put out resonate, right? So that's all I'm saying with that is like everyone just like take 3 steps back and just sharpen your craft a bit. Just stop playing to the algorithm. You know, less is more sometimes. And yeah, and that's all. Just I think everyone just take your craft a little more seriously, including myself.
Interesting. Do you find that, like, you think of Russ and he kind of, I think would say, put out the rubric of dropping these singles and keeping up with it. And he tried to give like a little bit of a rubric on what you do as an independent artist. And maybe people take that too far sometimes, or they kind of lock into a process. And instead of coming from that place of inspiration, they're treating it more like just a business where they just need to get out a product.
Yeah, I think if you're Russ and you can put out that many songs and the quality can stay up, by all means, release as frequently as you can, as long as your quality doesn't suffer. But Russ definitely coined that method of going about releasing music. But I also think algorithms, the way that people release content and how oversaturated music is now, if you don't release every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you feel like you're being forgotten because all of your peers have released another song and 40 pieces of content. So now you're lost in the sea. You're trying to poke your hand out and say, hey, like I still exist. But that moment of, hey, I still exist, you're presenting something that's subpar a lot of the time because you didn't take your time because all you cared about was not being forgotten about.
What advice would you have for rappers?
Take your time. Making something great is not that common anymore because everyone just wants to make more. So if you can just make something great, it's going to stand out. People always ask me why I don't push content hard like a lot of other people and make a lot of short form content. One is because my energy can't be divided that hard, or I choose not to divide my energy like that, rather. And it's also because I'm a firm believer that cream rises to the top. So if I can take my time and make something incredible and undeniable, and then I put a video behind it that also has the same amount of effort as the song did, I think cream rises to the top, and I don't need to force feed you 40 pieces of short form content to beg you to listen to my song. You're just going to want to, and it's going to spread by word of mouth because it's good. And I think people are underestimating good music spreading by itself because content works. It's like, yes, it does, but like, it doesn't matter how much you dress up a shitty song. If you can just, to boil it back down, if you make good songs, really good songs that you take your time on, you're going to stand out because you're doing something that someone else can't, that most people can't.
That was really well said. And it kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation where like the authenticity is also really key. Like, I think people see what NF did and they go like, I need to figure out a way to fit that mold and I need to create what he created and I need to do it in the same way because he proved that it works. And then people kind of like, well, if you're not there to what you described earlier, you're going to kind of miss that. And I find that my favorite songs, like your albums are still in my like most recently played list and they stay there because I go back and I listen to it and it has meaning behind it. And I go, I'm in this different point in my life, but that line has a new meaning to me today than it did before, where I look at some songs and I don't mean to rip on them, but like the Chainsmokers. They don't have depth to the lyrics. They figured out what the common way to make a beat kind of ring in your ear, and it hits for the first 20 days, and then you can't hear that song again without wanting to turn it off. Like, it changes the meaning behind it over time. But great artists find a way to, you go back to it. And like NF, I think, is also good at this of like, you go back and you like, yeah, I do need to change in my life, or I do need these things. And you go back and you learn something new about yourself from listening to the song. And that's something where I think there's like a depth to the lyrics that you need to find. And that will withstand the test of time and become a great song. Cause that's the other concern is like certain songs just seem to stay at that top played list for a reason because there's depth and you can learn about yourself through that.
Yeah, I think you said it best. It's that authenticity, man. I think intention is a really big talking point behind this because guess what, man? Like, there's no wrong answer. If you want to make music for money, then go make music for money. And you can follow the pop template and all that fun stuff. And it could, if you're talented and have a voice on you, it's probably going to work. Real talk. But from my personal experience, making music for money is it's meaningless, bro. Again, going back to purpose. Go ahead, because guess what? Let me let you in on a little secret, and it's not that big of a secret. Once you get money, and then your whole intention of making music was to make money, it's gonna suck to make. You're not gonna like it because you already have money. And what are you gonna do with more money? Buy things that make you feel hollow. So if you want money and you want to make songs like that, run it up. But it is not a long-term plan to gain fulfillment from your music. And I also think the people who do decide to make music as a journal or to help others or any real motivator, those resonate with humans, right? So there's a really funny thing, man. So there's people who have like, let's say, 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify, right? But their music is not talking about shit. Maybe it just sounds good. And they cannot sell out a venue for their life. And then there's people with 200,000 monthly listeners that are selling out 2,000 cap venues every night because what they're talking about resonates with people. So intention, again, like, yeah, you can make your streaming money, but you may not have longevity. And you also may feel like shit once you get money. And that's that. And you realize it isn't all that anyway once your bills are paid. So, yeah, I think it's a really loaded topic, but I think the intention you have when you go to create your music determines a lot.
Beautiful. Well said. You're going on tour. Can you tell us about it? Are you excited? Are you nervous?
Yes, I'm very excited. Very, very excited. It has been a long time coming. I've had a what most would deem a successful music career since 2019. It is now 2024, and I am now for the first time going on tour. To answer your question about if I'm nervous, in the beginning I was, and that is also why it's taken so long to go on tour because like I said, I'm not a huge fan of public speaking, but fuck letting fear rule your life. That is stupid. So, since I found out I was going on tour, which is probably like 2 months ago maybe, I've been rehearsing every single day. I found my set list that I wanted, and every day I wake up and I run through the entire set list. And the reason for this is because I want to cut out all as many variables as possible. You're already performing in front of a live crowd, so there's a variable every single night of how things can go. But I've recognized for myself that most of the nerves come from anxiety of messing certain things up. So I want to make sure that anything that could be messed up on my end is just muscle memory that I could do with my eyes closed. That if someone threw a box of nachos at me, it wouldn't stop me because I literally could do it in my sleep. Now, with that being said, because it's been so long that I've been rehearsing, no, my nerves have been eased big time because I'm confident in what I'm getting up on that stage to do. I'm confident in the message behind their song, in the songs that I'm performing. And I think if you deep down know your songs don't have any meaning, you are way more nervous to get on stage because what you're saying has no intention and no purpose. So you're afraid that people aren't going to like it. And you should be afraid because your music doesn't have any purpose. So with that being said, that got a bit intense, but I'm passionate about it.
I love it.
So with that being said, I'm excited because I think the song selection is great. I think I'm prepared. I think it's a long time coming, and I'm confident in my music and the purpose behind it.
One of my favorite things we talked about this last time was that when you're going on tour, you're not really playing a song that's gonna do something. Like, people are showing up to have an experience, to make memories, to be a part of a moment. And I think you really get that. I've done a few live events, and I constantly, like, I do my same prep work, make sure I got my questions prepared, make sure that everybody's having a good night and they've got the food they want. But my mindset is so much more like, make this fun, make sure people feel the variety of emotions and that they go through that, because that's what hits home. That's where people go home and they're like, I had a good night. When you hit them with some sad songs, when you hit them with some pump up, you're going to take over the world songs, when you get that energy, that's what people walk away with and they go, that was a great night. And I know that you get that, and we had a great conversation last time about that. So I'm so excited for you, because I think everybody who attends that is going to make so many good memories and be so happy that they came out and they participated. How can people grab tickets to this?
Yes, so you can get tickets. I should know the link directly, but I do not. If you go into any of my social media pages, at Real Vin Jay on Instagram, same on Twitter, and I believe it's just Vin Jay on Facebook. If you go into the link in my bio on any of those, that has my set page, which has the link to the ticket site.
Do you know approximately which venues, like what areas you'll be hitting? I know you're not coming to Chilliwack, so I'm disappointed about that.
Yeah, I've got a few disappointed people, but unfortunately, I'm not in control of the route, and we wanted, or rather, management wanted to hit West Coast first, so that's what we're doing. I got some East Coast people mad at me, but I'll be over there soon, and I would love to. I got international people who want me to come too as well, and I would love to. But getting my feet wet with the West Coast first. In terms of what cities am I doing, I should know off the top of my head. I do not. I could tell you roughly. I know we're going as far west as Cali. I think we're going the furthest east is like Ohio, which is actually like really loner over there. We're not really doing anything else over there. But yeah, a little Utah, a little Cali, Texas, Washington. So kind of pretty much the whole west side of the country.
Beautiful. Vin, it's such an honor to speak with you every single time. Again, I just think you've got this unique philosophy that I really look up to, and I hear it in all the songs. I'm a huge fan of your work, and it's always such a privilege when you agree to come on, because I'm like, yay, we get to speak again, and I just enjoy your perspective on things. So thank you again for being willing to hop on.
Anytime, man. I appreciate you having me on. I very much enjoy our conversations as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying yes so much. It's a good time. I think we have thought-provoking convos every time, and yeah, it's the respect is mutual for sure.
It sounds like there's a potential podcast in your future, so I can't wait to see that come to life. And I wish you the best of luck going on tour and on your wedding. I'm so happy for you. You're really having things come together, and that's just such an amazing thing to see.
Thank you. I appreciate that.